Hi there, I'm Laura. I'm 27 years old, and I recently found myself navigating life as a newly divorced woman after separating from my husband, Larry. Our love story began back in college, where we shared classes and quickly fell in love. We had a strong bond, but there was always a shadow over our relationship. Larry's mother, Lily. From the very beginning, Lily seemed to harbor an inexplicable dislike for me. She was always meddling in our relationship, offering unsolicited advice, and making me feel unwelcome. I expressed my concerns to Larry many times, but he struggled to confront his mother. He was torn between his loyalty to her and his love for me. Eventually, I resigned myself to endure Lily's criticisms, believing that Larry might have been unknowingly sharing too much with her, giving her fuel to criticize me. Our relationship faced many challenges, with frequent arguments about his mother's influence. But over time, Larry began to understand my perspective and stopped sharing the intimate details of our life with her. After 5 years of dating, we got married, much to Lily's dismay. Despite her attempts to interfere with our marriage, we managed to distance ourselves from her toxic presence for a while. During this period, both Larry and I found success in our careers. Although I admired Larry's accomplishments, I started to feel the need for something more personal, something that was mine alone. We had split our expenses unequally, with me covering the majority, but that didn't bother me much. What really weighed on me was the growing void I felt inside, a desire to pursue something creative and fulfilling. Drawing on my passion for design, I decided to explore graphic design as a side venture. It became a personal project, something I could call my own, and I kept it under wraps for a while, nurturing it quietly as I figured out where it might take me. I decided to take a leap of faith and enrolled in graphic design courses, investing in equipment without Larry's knowledge. My best friend, Mary, was the only person I confided in about this new venture. She was incredibly supportive, offering me both encouragement and practical advice as I developed my skills. As my confidence grew, Mary introduced me to people who were interested in hiring me, even though I was just starting out. They appreciated my work and trusted me with their projects, helping me gradually build a client base. This new source of income made a big difference in our lives. It eased the financial pressures we were facing and allowed Larry and me to enjoy a more comfortable lifestyle. With each paycheck, I saved a portion, dreaming of surprising Larry with something special as a token of my appreciation for his support. However, I hadn't mentioned any of this to him yet, and every time I thought about bringing it up, it seemed like he was avoiding serious conversations. It wasn't long before I noticed something was off. Larry became increasingly distant, and I couldn't shake the feeling that he was hiding something from me. The first real sign of trouble came when Larry admitted that he had spent his entire paycheck on investments, just a week after receiving it. We had a heated argument about it, but we managed to patch things up for the time being. To help make ends meet, I put in extra hours at work, which helped relieve some of the financial strain. But the following month, Larry repeated the same behavior, and I found myself feeling more and more frustrated. I couldn't understand how he could be so careless with his earnings, especially when I was working so hard to contribute to our household. In a moment of anger, I lashed out with hurtful words, though I quickly regretted my outburst. However, when Larry once again found himself without money for the 5th month in a row, I reached my breaking point. I had been meticulously managing our finances, working tirelessly not just at my day job, but also on my growing graphic design business, which was becoming our main source of income. It was becoming clear that something had to change, and I couldn't keep carrying the burden alone. I had reached my limit. "How could you let this happen again? Have you learned nothing?" I scolded Larry, my frustration boiling over. Despite his attempts to justify his actions, I was done bearing the weight of his financial irresponsibility. It was a tough decision, but I made it clear that I wasn't going to bail him out this time. Larry reacted with indignation and defensiveness, but I stood firm. "You can't gamble away your entire paycheck and expect me to cover for you," I asserted. I won't enable this behavior any longer." Our argument quickly escalated, with accusations flying back and forth, until finally, Larry stormed out, leaving me alone to grapple with the turmoil of our crumbling relationship. In the aftermath of our confrontation, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Larry's behavior than met the eye. Suspicions began to creep in, and I wondered if Lily, his overbearing mother, might be involved. Determined to uncover the truth, I decided to do some investigating while Larry was out. It didn't take long for me to find what I was looking for. Larry had carelessly left his bank account logged in on my laptop, and what I discovered shocked me. Contrary to his claims of being broke, Larry had more than enough money squirreled away. As I scrutinized his transactions, I found nothing unusual, just the usual debits and credits. But I couldn't understand why he had been hiding his finances from me and telling lies. Seeking clarity, I delved into his messages, and the first person I noticed him texting was his mother, Lily. Their conversation revolved around our recent altercation, with Larry painting me as the antagonist, claiming I had berated him for withholding money. Lily seemed to revel in the discord, affirming her suspicions about me. As I scrolled further, I uncovered a disturbing revelation. Lily had been relentlessly disparaging me to Larry, labeling me as materialistic, and insinuating that I was only with him for financial gain. Ironically, I was the primary breadwinner in our household. Their exchanges showed how Lily's toxic influence had fueled Larry's grievances against me, magnifying minor annoyances and nurturing his resentment. The final blow came when I realized just how deeply Lily's words had seeped into Larry's mind, twisting his perception of our relationship and turning him against me. The truth was out, and it left me reeling. When I discovered their scheme to cut me off financially, it felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. Initially hesitant, Larry gradually gave in to Lily's manipulations, slowly yielding to her demands. He unknowingly provided her with more ammunition by sharing moments where I had expressed my frustrations, further fueling her animosity toward me. This betrayal was devastating, leaving me overwhelmed with hurt and confusion. Unsure of my next steps, I turned to my best friend, Mary, seeking solace in her comforting presence. I confided in her, revealing the distressing truth I had uncovered and desperately seeking her guidance in this tumultuous moment. Mary, ever the steadfast confidant, listened intently, offering her unwavering support as I struggled to process the betrayal inflicted by those closest to me. The situation weighed heavily on me, and I found myself at a crossroads, uncertain of the best course of action. It seemed glaringly obvious cut off Larry's support, wait for him to hit rock bottom, and then file for divorce. But Mary questioned the morality of such a plan, suggesting that it might be too harsh. Her concern prompted me to reconsider my approach, and she advised me to sleep on it and revisit the issue the next day. Exhausted both physically and emotionally, I welcomed the respite that sleep promised. The next morning, with the luxury of a weekend ahead, Mary and I decided to find comfort in the familiarity of a favorite movie. We drifted off to sleep in each other's company, the tranquility of the day offering a temporary sense of peace, a brief reprieve from the turmoil brewing within me. We indulged in simple pleasures, immersing ourselves in movies, enjoying culinary delights, and savoring each other's company. Despite the nagging thoughts of the previous day's revelations, I made a conscious effort to set them aside, prioritizing the much-needed break from the stress and heartache I had been experiencing. However, our peaceful reprieve was short-lived. A call from Lily shattered the calm. Reluctantly, I answered, only to be met with accusations and hostility. Her unwarranted attacks only served to heighten the tension, but with Mary's encouragement, I managed to maintain my composure amidst Lily's tirade. Then, amidst the hostility, an unexpected proposal emerged, a 40/60 split of everything between Larry and me. It was a proposition that dripped with skepticism, clearly a test of my commitment to the marriage. Despite the audacity of her demand, it left me contemplating the next steps in what was becoming an increasingly difficult and painful situation. I agreed, willing to explore any possibility of salvaging what was left of our relationship. With a tentative acceptance, we set plans in motion, culminating in a scheduled meeting on Friday to formalize the arrangement. Despite the lingering uncertainty, I resolved to face the challenge head-on, armed with newfound determination to navigate the tumultuous waters ahead. I was stunned by the turn my marriage had taken, caught between disbelief and seething anger. How could Lily brand me a gold digger? And how could Larry stand by and allow such an accusation? I had stood by him through thick and thin, supporting his endeavors even when they led to losses. I had covered for him when he lied and shouldered the burden of our shared responsibilities, all while keeping my own side hustle a secret, waiting for the right moment to reveal it. When I shared the details with Mary, her smile hinted at the brilliance of the plan. Splitting everything evenly would leave Larry with little to fall back on, given his lack of awareness about my additional income. I had initially hoped to surprise him with a lavish gift once my side venture gained traction, but now I was simply grateful to have it as a safety net. Friday arrived quickly, and Mary accompanied me for support. When we arrived home, we found Lily, Larry, and a lawyer already there, finalizing the contract. Ignoring Larry's silent plea for privacy, I approached Lily and demanded to review the terms. As expected, the agreement mandated an equal division of assets, with a clause prohibiting financial assistance between us. Reluctantly, I signed, knowing it would leave Larry scrambling financially. Predictably, problems ensued. Initially, our communication was limited to curt words, the rift between us too deep to bridge. Yet, living under the same roof required some level of interaction. Larry attempted to reach out and mend the divide, but I remained distant, resentful of his complacency in the situation. As time passed, Larry's persistent attempts to reconnect grew tiresome. The weight of our fractured relationship hung heavily over us, and I found it increasingly difficult to maintain my resolve. Despite everything, the reality of our situation was sinking in, and I knew that the path forward would not be easy. I eventually gave in. "Will you please just talk to me? We can't keep going on like this," Larry pleaded, his voice filled with a longing that caught me off guard. It was jarring to hear him express how much he missed our connection, especially after he had willingly signed away our financial unity. "What do you want me to say, Larry?" I retorted, my frustration clear. "Is that why you agreed to sever our finances completely?" His silence was deafening, revealing the deep divide between us as we stood at the brink of our shattered marriage. I struggled with the weight of our choices, unsure if reconciliation was even possible. "I just need to know where your loyalty lies, Laura," Larry implored. "Despite all the issues caused by your mother, you still choose to side with her. Is this truly what you believe is best for us?" "Please, Larry, don't speak ill of my mother like that. And what wealth are you so concerned about?" "I don't understand," I countered, feeling both confused and hurt. "I'm simply trying to make things right between us. Can we not lash out at each other?" "There will be no reconciliation until that contract is null and void," Larry replied defensively. "It's only been 3 weeks since we signed it, and I've seen no evidence to suggest you're not here for the money. If you're struggling financially, just let me know. I'm willing to help," I offered, trying to bridge the gap between us. "Wouldn't that be a breach of the contract?" "I won't risk violating it," I insisted. "Why are you making this so difficult? Can't we just be civil?" I could see Larry wrestling with conflicting influences, his mother's and his own. The Larry I married wouldn't have succumbed to such manipulation. That month, I focused on paying off our major debts, leaving Larry to manage on his own. With my share settled, I had more disposable income, and Mary and I indulged in lavish outings, while Larry always had an excuse for his financial constraints. My graphic design side gig was thriving, and I began to seriously consider quitting my day job. Meanwhile, Larry struggled, his portion of the pantry often bare. While a part of me felt sympathy for him, I couldn't ignore the choices he had made that led us here. I reminded myself that Larry had brought this situation upon himself, but that didn't make the unfolding events any easier to handle. Lily's unexpected visit, however, threw me off balance. She stormed into my home, her face a mask of anger, and before I could even greet her, she accused me of stealing from Larry. The words hit me like a slap in the face. Not only was I confused, but I was also immediately on the defensive. How could she possibly think I was stealing from my own husband? "What are you talking about?" I demanded, trying to keep my voice steady. "You're accusing me of seeking revenge on Larry because I don't like the contract he made us sign? That's absurd. Your son has been struggling all month, but it's not because I've been stealing his money to fund my outings. He has no money to steal, and you know it. And let's not forget who actually coerced us into signing that contract in the first place. You forced it upon us, and now your son is paying the price." Lily's eyes narrowed, and I could see her temper flaring. "Liar," she shouted. "I'm calling the police right now." "Go ahead," I replied, meeting her gaze head-on. "I haven't taken a single cent from your son. You won't find anything because there's nothing to find." "Then how do you have so much money?" she demanded, not backing down. "Your job doesn't pay that much more than Larry's, and he's told me you've cut back your hours. So where's all this money coming from?" I took a deep breath, deciding that now was the time to lay it all out. "I have another business on the side," I began. "A graphic design venture that I've been working on for a while now. I was planning to surprise Larry with it, to show him what I'd accomplished. But thanks to your constant meddling, that plan went down the drain. I was even going to use the money to buy you a car as a gesture of goodwill, to show you that I'm not the person you think I am." Lily looked taken aback, but she wasn't ready to relent just yet. "How much do you make from this side business?" she asked, her voice laced with suspicion. "More than you'd expect," I answered. "I've worked hard to build something successful, something I'm proud of. And all this time, I wasn't lying or trying to deceive anyone. I was simply trying to do something good, something positive. And now, thanks to your interference, everything I've worked for has been jeopardized. If you care so much about your son, maybe you should be the one supporting him instead of tearing down everything I've built." With that, I took a deep breath and reached into my bag, pulling out a set of divorce papers that I had been holding onto for this moment. The sight of them seemed to take Lily by surprise, but I was beyond caring about her reaction. I turned to Larry, who had been standing silently by, his expression a mix of guilt and resignation. "I didn't want it to come to this, Larry," I said, my voice softening as I addressed him. "I tried to make things work, even after everything that's happened. But I can't keep doing this. I can't keep living under the shadow of your mother's influence, and I can't keep pretending that everything is okay when it's not. I've worked hard to build a life for myself, and I deserve to be with someone who supports that, not someone who lets their mother tear us apart." Larry looked down, unable to meet my eyes. Lily opened her mouth to say something, but I cut her off before she could start. "This isn't just about money," I continued. "It's about respect, trust, and the foundation of a relationship that should have been built on mutual support. I've done everything I can to support you, Larry, even when things were tough. But I need to take care of myself now. I need to protect what I've built." With those words, I handed the divorce papers to Larry. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with the weight of everything that had led us to this point. Lily looked at the papers, then at Larry, her face a mask of disbelief. I knew it wasn't going to be easy, and the road ahead would be filled with challenges. But I also knew that I couldn't keep sacrificing my own happiness and well-being for the sake of a relationship that was no longer healthy. As I turned to leave, I felt a sense of finality, but also a sense of relief. I had taken the steps I needed to protect myself, and now it was time to move forward. Whatever the future held, I was ready to face it on my own terms, with the knowledge that I had done everything I could to make things right. I had filed for divorce right after we signed the contract, quietly holding onto the papers until the right moment to reveal them. When I finally handed them to Larry, the shock on his face was unmistakable, but I felt no sympathy. I had given him every chance to make things right, and he had chosen his path. I expected Lily to be pleased, given how hard she had pushed for this separation. Instead, her expression shifted to one of fury as she realized the full consequences this would have for her son. I calmly informed them that I would be moving out in last weeks. I had made up my mind, and there was no going back. I agreed to continue splitting the remaining loan payments, but that was the extent of my commitment. Larry, clearly desperate, tried to plead with me, hoping to change my mind, but I remained resolute. I reminded him that this was the outcome of his choices and actions, and that we had both reached a point of no return. In the months that followed, I began to feel a sense of liberation from the toxic relationship that had been weighing me down for so long. Lily, as expected, tried to contest the divorce, likely hoping to salvage something from the situation. However, with our assets already legally separated, there was little for Larry to gain from the proceedings. In fact, he ended up losing more than he ever imagined. Unable to keep up with the mortgage payments on the house, he was forced to sell it and move back in with his mother. As for me, my life took a turn for the better. My graphic design business began to flourish far beyond what I had initially envisioned. I started landing lucrative opportunities with big brands, and my client base expanded rapidly. It was a blissful and rewarding period for me, one that filled me with a sense of accomplishment and relief. I finally felt like I was in control of my life, free from the negativity and constant stress that had overshadowed my marriage. Every day, I felt grateful that I had something to fall back on. My side business, which had started as a small venture, had grown into a successful and profitable enterprise. This financial independence spared me from the fate Larry had to endure, and it allowed me to move forward without the burden of our past weighing me down. Larry's situation was quite different. With the house sold and his financial stability shattered, he struggled to adjust. Moving back in with his mother was a blow to his pride, and I could only hope that this experience would serve as a lesson for him in the future. Perhaps he would learn the importance of responsibility, trust, and the consequences of allowing others to manipulate his decisions. But those lessons were no longer my concern. I was focused on building my own future now. I embraced the opportunities that lay ahead, excited about what was to come. The freedom to pursue my passions, the success of my business, and the peace that came with leaving a toxic situation behind filled me with a sense of fulfillment I hadn't felt in years. Life was finally moving in a positive direction, and I was determined to make the most of it. I surrounded myself with supportive friends, like Mary, who had stood by me through thick and thin. Together, we celebrated the small victories and the big achievements, knowing that this new chapter in my life was just the beginning. Looking back, I realized how far I had come and how much I had grown. The painful experiences of the past had shaped me into a stronger, more resilient person. I was no longer the woman who had been manipulated and overshadowed by others. I was now someone who knew her worth, who understood the value of independence, and who was ready to take on the world with confidence. The future was bright, and I was ready to face it with open arms. No longer burdened by the mistakes and betrayals of the past, I was free to pursue my dreams and live life on my own terms. And that, more than anything, was the most rewarding part of this entire journey.